All right, here we go. Brand new Flyers Daily for the 22nd of October, 2024. Flyers Daily, as always, presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. Flyers, Caps tonight at Wells Fargo Center. And the return of Nick Seeler. Yeah, Nick Seeler going to be in the lineup for the Flyers tonight, which is great news. It does a couple of things. Number one, it gets Nick Seeler back on the ice, which is good to see. That means he's healthy. Was at practice yesterday. Maybe it provides some consistency in partner for the defenseman a little bit better. He'll play probably with Jamie Drysdale. Ristolainen will play with Zamula. And then York and Sanheim together as they were all last year. And Eric Johnson comes out for the first time this season. So getting Nick Seeler back is good for Drysdale because he knows Seeler will be back there ready to defend if he decides to use his legs and get up ice and contribute offensively. And he'll also provide some accountability for the opposition. I do not want Nick Seeler fighting every game. That's not what I mean. But I do want the other team to know that a player like Nick Seeler is there that can provide some accountability. And is not going to stand for taking runs at guys and taking liberties on young players or anybody, and his D partner included. So I think that is a good element with Nick Seeler coming back into the lineup tonight. We'll see what the effect of that is. We haven't seen Nick Seeler since the preseason. He's only played 8 regular season games since he signed that contract extension. He got hurt and came back last year at the very end, so hasn't gotten a ton of action in since signing that new deal. So we hope for nothing but health going forward for Nick Seeler. Okay, Flyers Caps tonight. Flyers come into this game a record of 1-3-1, 5 games played, -8 in goal differential. The Caps come in the third spot in the Metro, 4 games played, 3-1 is their record. They have won 3 straight games, and Alex Ovechkin not leading the way when it comes to points or goals. Matter of fact, who is leading the way for the Washington Capitals? Well, it is Dylan Strome off to a piping hot start. In 4 games, he's got 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points. Tom Wilson's got 5 goals early on, 6 points. John Carlson's got a goal and 4 assists. Ovechkin's got a goal and 3 assists. Ovechkin now 40 goals behind Wayne Gretzky for the all-time mark in NHL scoring. So he's going to get there. Probably not this year. Maybe. I doubt it. But he will get there to break that record. I don't think there's any question about that. Caps power play right now, and we know Ovechkin likes to eat on the power play. Right now, clicking at 23rd in the NHL. Not been a great start, 15%-ish on the year. Flyers 12th ranked power play in the NHL. Despite the 1-3-1 start, the power, really special teams, the Flyers power play has been a huge positive for the team. Penalty killing's been good. They've only given up 1 5-on-4 power play goal to the opposition so far this season. I think there was a 4-on-3 in there and also a 5-on-3 that they gave up. But the special teams have been good. But really the name of the game is 5-on-5. They've got to be better 5-on-5 most of the game. Even with the amount that they've been on the PK and the power play here early in the season, most of the game is played 5-on-5. So they have to improve their 5-on-5 play. They have to prevent more goals 5-on-5, and they have to generate some goals 5-on-5. Now you go, that's not rocket scientists. You know, they just got shut out. No kidding. Well, they need to be better at generating 5-on-5 and controlling play 5-on-5 as well. So it'll be the Flyers and the Caps tonight at Wells Fargo. Flyers, Caps tomorrow night in D.C., then a couple days off, and another back-to-back this weekend, Minnesota on Saturday at 1 o'clock, and then Sunday at 7 o'clock, also at Wells Fargo Center. It'll be the Montreal Canadiens. And then the Flyers won't have a back-to-back all the way until the 29th and 30th of November, so after Thanksgiving. So 2 back-to-backs this week. Already had a back-to-back, night 1 and 2 of the season. But they'll get a little break from that after this week and can kind of get into the rhythm of the schedule. Now, it is early. They are 1-3-1. There are some things that we're seeing in their play, and we're going, oh, got to clean up the 5-on-5 play. Got to clean up the D zone structure. At times it looks like they're not playing. They're trying to break in a new defensive zone structure or system because they're over pursuing or some mental mistakes. Some things you can go, okay, they've been playing 10 o'clock games and on the road and travel and the whole thing. But that's not one of them to me. That's something they need to clean up immediately, is the D-zone structure from the crease out and go from there. What we're going to do here in this episode, too, is I want to go through a DM I got from a Flyers Daily listener, Greg, and also some of the comments on the episode Bill and I did yesterday on YouTube. And tomorrow will be the first time, and the next day will be the first time we'll play some of the Flyers Daily listener line audio messages. I've gotten a bunch, so we'll get to some of those coming up as well. But let's get to this DM first from Greg, and we're going to take this in 5 parts. He said, early observations I know you didn't ask me for. He said, number 1, I'm disappointed in the team as a whole. I didn't expect the players to come into this year seemingly forgetting how to play with one another. There seems to be no chemistry on this team right now. And I think there's been moments of chemistry, but it hasn't been consistent. We haven't seen, the constant chemistry from multiple lines in a game. The first game against Vancouver, where they won in the shootout, was a good game. And we saw some chemistry with different combinations. But we've also seen some areas that is like, well, do these pieces kind of fit together? Are they trying to figure out how to play together? They do need to find those guys whose skill sets complement each other and make each other better, whether it's a pair on D or 2 forwards and you kind of move around a third. We'll see if they're going to have to find that. In the offseason, we looked at certain things and said, God, it makes all the sense in the world to play Frost, Tippett, and Michkov. Or we've seen a line with Konechny and Michkov together, and Michkov playing actually on his natural side, but not the side he prefers on the right side. So we've seen different combinations, but finding what works best with what, both for a period of time and long periods of time, is going to be key. Obviously, getting Nick Seeler back, maybe that helps Jamie Drysdale with that consistency of partner, and maybe that, by proxy, helps Zamula and Ristolainen, because they have consistency in partner, and York and Sanheim as well. So we'll see what the trickle-down effect of that is. Greg's point number 2. He said, Couturier, I had high hopes for Coots to come into this year stronger and be our 1 or 2C. Instead, it appears like he's picked up at the way he finished last year, and it's hurting us in the early stages. I didn't expect him to get off to the start he got off to last year. This is something we talked about on Flyers Daily, because he's coming off that core surgery. I was hoping for a bit of the inverse of last year. Last year, he started off really well and tailed off at the end. This year, I thought he could maybe not start off as well, but get stronger as he goes. With the core surgery, you have to break down that scar tissue in your abdomen or abdominal area, your core. And that affects skating to a tremendous degree, especially burst, your first step. Couturier's never been the most fleet-of-foot guy, and when you're breaking that down, you don't have the same level of explosiveness. And he's not a guy that had speed to, that he didn't need. He needed all he had. And when he doesn't have as much, you see the difference. Now, he can make up for some of that with hockey IQ, anticipation of plays, reading plays. But I didn't expect him to get off to a great start. I'm not shocked that it's been a little bit of a struggle for him. But I do get the perception. He finished last year struggling, and he's starting this year. Is that what he is? It's like the start to this season. It's a 1-3-1 start. If you have a 5-game stretch in January or February, and the team goes 1-3-1, and I got news for you, every team in the NHL will have a stretch like that. It's not the end of the world. It's a 5-game stretch where you haven't been very good. You went 1-3-1. Maybe you're even lucky to get the 3 points that you have of those possible 10 points. But because it's in the beginning of a season, coming off a season where they struggled at the end and ended up missing out on the playoffs as a result, then you start to go, okay, was that team at the end of last year Is that now what this team is as we start this year, and will it go on? When you start a season strong, it's different because when you lose games or have a rough stretch, if it's the beginning of a season, we tend to make determinations, some, right away, that this is what the team is. And it'll take a long time to change people's mind. If you finish a season reeling, you carry it all through the offseason. It's the lasting impression. If you finish a season strong, then maybe sometimes, and falsely, you can have more optimism than you should because of the strong finish and that lasting impression. I think we've seen that happen before as well. Same thing goes for the players. Number 3 for Greg, Fedotov. He said you covered it in detail, so I won't add anything. But if he's an NHL goalie, it's going to take a lot of painful games to get there. And I don't disagree with that at all. It's not like Fedotov can just be there working with Flyers goalie coach Kim Dillabaugh and watching tape and practicing, and that's going to be how he adjusts to the NHL or the North American game. The way to adjust to the NHL and the North American game is to play the North American game. It can't be just practice and work on the technical movements with your goalie coach. You've got to play. Now, what's that line of demarcation to go, okay, we're trying to find out if this guy's an NHL goalie. He's had success in the KHL, and he's had success internationally. At 27, almost 28, he'll be 28 in November. Is it harder for a guy that has had a high level of success, and he had high level of success in the KHL and internationally, is it harder for him to adjust to a new league because of this? If you've been doing something your whole life and you're 28 years old and you've been having good success at it, is it harder to change how you do it when you go to a different situation and now you're not having success? Or is that easier for a 21 or 22-year-old to make that adjustment to do things differently? You know, the 21, 22-year-old, those are peak development years. 27, 28 aren't development years. So that's a question I have. I don't know the answer to it. And you would have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. But that's really the question. But I agree with Greg. It's not one of those things where you can just coach them up and it's going to fix it. It just doesn't work like that. Can they send him down to the AHL and play with the Phantoms to go through some of that? Absolutely. Would he pass through waivers? Absolutely. The contract and his lack of success at the NHL level right now, nobody's going to claim him. But are you bringing Kolosov up too early, who was also in a similar yet slightly different position coming from the KHL to the NHL? So that's what you've got to figure out. Greg said, Lachenko, if there is in fact going to send him back, I fear this team will have zero burst. And with Couturier where he's at, the team's deficiency at the center position is showing more than ever. Yeah, they are thin at the center position for sure, and you love the speed that Lachenko brings to that equation. But because of how it'll affect this season, I don't think they can let that cloud their judgment on what the right thing is to do. And I'm not saying the right thing is to keep him, and I'm not saying the right thing is to send him back. I don't know what the right thing is. I'm not in any of those film sessions with him, on the bench, in the room. None of that. They'll have a better idea of what that is. But whatever it is, it can't be because you want speed here now. You got to do what's best for the player long term. And by proxy, that'll be what's best for the franchise. So where this goes, Flyers have played 5 games. He's played 4. He was an extra at practice yesterday, so we'll see if he's in the lineup tonight. But the decision, I don't think, should be based on a need for this season. You have to do what's best long-term for the development of the player and Lachenko. Number 4, Greg says, lowered expectations. Seeing the team come out so flat, travel or not, in the home opener was troublesome. They look outmatched 5-on-5, and the lack of chemistry and energy early doesn't bode well. I think it's hard for a lot of us to understand what that feels like when they come back from that trip after being out there jumping around time zone to time zone from Pacific time to Mountain time, back to Pacific time, coming back and then playing the next day. It's not easy. And it's a reason why people that gamble for a living as professional gamblers and handicappers, they find spots like this in sports schedules where a team comes back from a multiple time zone difference and comes back home with only one day off in between the games. It's one of those great spots. I mean, you saw Vegas had the Vancouver Canucks going into the game at minus 150. Why is that? Is it because they're that much of a better team than the Flyers who beat them 8 days before? Or is it because of the disadvantageous spot in the schedule with the travel the Flyers had, and Vancouver had already been out on the East Coast and played a game? Matter of fact, was in Philadelphia the night before the Flyers even got back, laying in wait for the Flyers, who returned on Friday. So that is a bigger part than I think some people realize. You see it in the NBA all the time. You see it in the NHL all the time. And you can see it reflected in the money line of those games. Number one. Number two, they had a slow start to the game. I thought that they generated decent offense in the second period and third period, but they lacked finish. And they couldn't get it done 5-on-5, which leads to Greg's next point. They look outmatched 5-on-5 and lack chemistry. I would like to see a lot more consistent chemistry among some of the forwards. We haven't seen like two guys really kind of on multiple lines really get it going yet, because 5-on-5 has been such a net negative. Power play's been good. PK's been good. 5-on-5 hasn't been good enough. And that's where this game's played. And then lastly, he said, it's too early to panic. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt with all the travel to start the season. But this week is huge. If they don't start to show something, I can see them getting buried in the standings early and not being able to recover. It is only 5 games in, for sure. But you don't want to get too far behind, because you also want to start to build a little bit of belief. And they're not the Edmonton Oilers of last year that could get off to a hideous start and then rattle off 13 straight wins. Flyers aren't built to do that. They don't have a Connor McDavid or a Draisaitl. So getting too far back in the standings is something that they have to avoid, because they're not built to overcome it. Let's get to some of the comments on YouTube's from yesterday's episode with Bill. Boomer said, all of your rant is laced with truth. However, the honest fact of the matter is it's only the start of the year 3 of the rebuild, and they are one of the youngest teams and will need some work yet before most of these players hit their potential. And they haven't even reached a point where they can rebuild like the Rangers and Panthers, where they can add a few star players financially through free agency. He said, way too early to be this critical 5 games in. Yes, I don't like it and expected better, but this too shall pass. I hope it passes. And Bill and I think, were really clear in the episode that it's very early in a season. And it's not time to hit a panic button and freak out. But there are the 5-on-5 play is an issue. And I disagree that it's year 3 of rebuild. I think it's at least year 4, number one. And, you said most of these players, it's still before they hit their potential. I mean, Owen Tippett's in his prime. Morgan Frost is in his prime. Joel Farabee's in his prime. They can get better, yes. But come on, you're letting them a little. They do have 12 players under 25, so they are young, no doubt about it. But there are players here that are in their prime. This isn't like it's 19 to 21-year-olds across the board. So I don't think it's any way foul to say that this start, while it's not cataclysmic, it's not fatal. The tide needs to be stemmed. Dean messaged and said, why give Couturier the C if the coach is embarrassing? I feel a trade coming on. They also need to play Nick Delarier. We need some muscle in the lineup. Young guys are getting pushed around too much. I think Nick Seeler coming back in can help that, Dino, and provide a little accountability for the opposition. I don't know how much Nick Delorier is going to play. I really don't. As far as Couturier being traded, I'd say that's very unlikely. A couple of reasons. One, he's got a full no-trade clause. Two, he's a very big contract with a lot of years, and he's not performing well right now to that contract. So sometimes in sports, you got to go, there's another GM on the other side that's got to go to justify the acquisition, too. Pumpkin King, usually my guy that's really negative, goes October, November hockey is usually dreadful. So no surprise here. All teams take the first 20 to 25 games to tinker and figure things out. Long season, lots of games to play. Pumpkin King, I like the optimism that you're coming with this time around. Cowboy said, I think they're tired of the coaching. The players is what he's saying. Why? The Seattle game, they got down 5-2. They didn't have good goaltending in that game. They pushed back to get within a goal in the third period. Then made a mistake and made it 6-4. Seattle did with the breakaway. But I thought they pushed in the Vancouver game. Sometimes I think we mistake the result with effort. I don't think effort's been an issue at all. I really don't think effort has been any kind of issue. Scott said that can Frost win a faceoff, or we don't have a number 1 or 2 center. Well, Frost actually on the season is 52.8% winning faceoffs this season. He actually was 10 wins and 9 losses in that Vancouver game. So he did win 10. He lost 9. AM tweeted in or messaged in and said, we should stop kidding ourselves. Couturier doesn't belong in the NHL. If you took away the history and just judged the current player, he'd be in the AHL. Okay. He's not off to a good start, and I don't know where his season is going. I don't. But to say he's an AHL player is frankly one of the dumber comments I've seen in quite a while. So congratulations, AM. You did it, man. T. Patrick, one more, says, it's a bad roster, smallish, slowish, and devoid of any grit or muscle. Very few good passers, even less good shooters. Defense might be the league's worst, and the goaltending has been so-so. Tort's post-game reaction tells it all. Game after game, he calmly explains that they just were outplayed. He knows what this team is. They don't have horses. Simple. They don't have a ton of size, for sure. I agree with that. I think they have speed. Owen Tippett is fast. Travis Konechny is a fast player. Jetlachenko is a fast player. They have a good amount of speed. I don't think speed's an issue. They haven't played with speed, though, this year. Last year, we saw a ton of transition offense. We haven't seen that this year. They've got to play faster. They're not playing fast this year like they did last year. I said that was the last one. One more. This guy says, honestly, the first line should be Couturier at center with Konechny and Michkov on his wings. That was the only first line where I got excited. Problem is that Michkov and Konechny play the same side. Now, one's a right shot, one's a left shot, but Michkov prefers the right side because of how it opens the ice for him as a left shot in the offensive zone. Allows him to see the ice better. It's probably a detriment in the D zone, but he's not comfortable playing on the left side. And some people go, well, just move Konechny over there. Well, Konechny is not a guy that's built to play on his off wing either, the way he plays. So I don't think you want to screw around with Konechny. I think you're the team's best player just to put those two guys together. They'll play together on the power play, but that's different than playing 5-on-5. But they got to figure out 5-on-5. There's no question about that. It's been the Achilles heel of this season so far. All right, that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Flyers Caps tonight. We'll recap it tomorrow on a brand new Flyers Daily.